What is happening, fishing friends? Welcome to another episode. Today we're talking about connection knots. Yes, your braid to your leader connection knots. Question that I get asked all the time. We're going to go over two knots today. But before we get started, I got to give a shout out to my man Spook to Fluke. He watched my last video, read the description below, and answered the bonus question. So to you, sir, I want to say thank you for being a verified fishing friend. Now, let's get on with these knots. The first knot I'll go over is just a very easy, very simple knot for beginners to learn, and that's the uni-to-uni knot. It's the very first connection knot that I learned to tie. That's why I'm going to go over that one first. It's very easy for beginners to get into. You can get used to it, but there are better knots out there. The uni-to-uni is not a very thin knot. You'll see once I get it tied on here, there's a little ball, and it doesn't come through the guides on your rod the easiest. That's why I use the Alberto knot. That'll be the second knot that we go over today. Now, in all honesty, I do believe the FG knot is the best connection knot out there. However, I'm not that great at tying it, so I'm not going to go over that one today, but the winter months are ahead. I will be practicing that knot this winter, and we'll do another video on the FG knot and maybe some things that I've learned that make it easier. So where do you start on this uni-to-uni knot? Well, you take your two lines and you run them in opposite directions. Going to lay those two next together and get some line to work with. Now I've got a little bit more line than I need here, but I've got these two lines laying next to each other, as you can see there, and about a foot of line to work with on either side. So the first step of this knot is to take the first side that you're going to work with. Was going this way, I'm going to bring it back and make a loop, just a circle right here. Just like that. So you can see I made a circle here. I took my line, looped it back, and made a circle. And all I'm going to do is take this line, my tag end, and wrap it around the inside of this circle, around both of these lines, wrap it around the inside of here 6 times. Now you can go, if you have really thick line, this is 20-pound monofilament, you can get away with 5. And if you have lighter lines, real thin, tiny stuff, if you're using a spinning combo, I would even bump it up to 7 or 8. So I'm gonna make those passes through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we'll just stop there. So you can see here what I've done is I've made a loop of that main line over this braid main line, and all I'm gonna do is I would get this nice and wet. I'm going to take this main line that I just ran all the loops over, hold it just like that, and I'm going to pull. And as you can see what happens here, I'm going to grab both of these, pull this down very slowly. That's the key with any knot. Keep it lubricated and pull slowly. I'm just going to keep pulling here. Grab the tag end of this main line, keep pulling nice and slow, and of course I would wet this. Keep that nice and wet, make your final pull there, and you can see what it does. So you can see it all cinches together right there. Now you don't have to worry about pulling super tight, because the awesome part of this knot is, once I do the same thing on the other side with my braid, these two knots are going to pull together, and that's what makes this connection so strong. So I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. You can see my first knot was over here. I want to make sure the second knot that I'm making is to the other side of it. So I don't want to make that knot on the wrong side. I want to make sure that when I pull these two together, these two knots are going to pull against each other. So I'm going to do the same process over here. I've got my one knot over here in my hand out of the way. I'm going to take my braid tag in and run it around here 5 times. 1, 2. Remember, make sure you're going over your braid, and you can barely see it there, my leader material. 3. Now again, the important part here is make sure you're going over both lines. Again, make sure you keep your knot all the way out to the other side, so when you pull these two together, they hit each other in the middle and make this connection nice and strong. 4, 5, and 6. Perfect. So again, before you start pulling too hard, you would want to wet this knot. Make sure you always use lubrication and go slow. The faster you pull your knots together, the more friction it's going to make. Friction causes heat, and that's bad. So you can see this coming together. I'm just holding my knot here and pulling my braid, and that's what it looks like. That's exactly what you want that knot to look like. A nice little barrel, all the lines are on top of each other. There's nothing frayed out looking strange. Now the beauty of this knot comes when these two knots join each other in the middle. So you can see here I start pulling it. So I'm holding my braid on one side, my leader on the other side, and I just keep pulling these two till they meet in the middle. You can see there they're almost together. You give that last little bit of a pull, and boom, they meet right in the middle. That's the beauty of this knot, is these two knots, the stronger you pull them together, the stronger it becomes. So to finish this knot off, all you have to do is cut your 2 tag ends. 1, 2, and that's what you're left with. So you can see it's not the thinnest, tiniest knot, but it is a good strong knot. It's the one I used for quite a long time just because it's so easy to tie. All you do is tie 2 loops on each side and pull it together. But the knot that I switched to and I've been using in the, well, I don't know, foreseeable past, is the Alberto knot. And this is not a hard knot. You're going to take that line and bring it back and form a U shape. Just like that. I'm going to hold that line. You can see back here I've got it in my hand, forming this U shape right here. Going to keep that line held tight in my left hand, and I'm going to take my braid, this is my main line, I'm going to bring it up under this loop. Now it's important that you understand which direction you came through, because when you take it back out as you're finishing the knot, you're going to go in the opposite direction. So I always take my ring finger on this hand and bring it right up through there. That way I know that I came up through the bottom with my main line. The next step is to take that braided main line and wrap it around these two strands 7 times. 1, 2, 3. And you can see as I go around, I pinch each knot right here. That way I can keep them nice and tight together. 4, 5, 6, and 7. And what you're left with is something like this. You can see I've got my 2 lines here. I've wrapped 7 times around this. I'm going to pinch right here at this last spot with my left hand. I'm going to pinch it. That way I know these aren't going to go anywhere. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the way back. I'm going to use my right hand and go over these for 7 times going back, but I'm going to try to wrap it in all these valleys. So here, 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 here. That way I'm crisscrossing these and they're all going to kind of lay together and bunch up nice when I tighten my knot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So what you're left with on this knot is something like this. Now it doesn't have to be extremely perfect. You can usually work it out at the end, but you want those to kind of crisscross and make an X. Like you can see there, on each one of those, they should crisscross over. I'm going to get this knot nice and wet. I'm going to wet from here out. That way it keeps all these nice little ripples and grooves over each other. Wet here out and get that wet with saliva. Just like that, I'm going to start pulling this ever so gently. Just gently, just to see what I'm looking like. Just like that. So now that I've got that wet with saliva, I'm going to take my tag end and pass it back through this loop. So you can see I use my ring finger here. That way I know I came up through the bottom, just like that when I started. So now I want my tag end to go from the top down. I want these to be opposite. When I first started, it went up through the bottom. Now that I'm ending, I'm going from the top down through. And I like to lock this in on the last loop. So I don't put it over here. I put it right where that line first came in. I'm going to put it right through that loop that it formed. Right there, just like that. I'm going to go right through there, right where that line first came through, and they're going to meet. So now that I've got it through there, I'm just going to gently pull. You can see what happens. I'm holding my 2 ends over here. I'm grabbing the tag end and the main line over here, and I'm just going to slightly pull. You can see it'll start to bunch up, so I'll grab my tag end here. Just need to take these knots and pull them out toward the end, just like that, to make sure this thing stays nice and tight the whole way down. Gonna pull it just like that, and that's what it looks like right when it starts to come together. I was giving another wet right here just to make sure it's good and moist. And then I'm going to grab my 2 main lines and pull. I'm going to pull it. It'll cinch down nice and tight. And that's what you're left with. One nice tight little barrel. You can see all the braid strands are running nice and next to each other. There's not any bulges or any big long pieces of, string that didn't tighten up. If you see any of that, you'll want to tie it over and give it a good pull here at the end. Pull on both your main line, your braid line and your leader line. Make sure you give both of those a nice pull and make sure that is good and tight. If you tied it right, that baby is nice and strong. The only thing you have left to do now is cut your tag ends. So I'll cut that braid tag end nice and tight next to the knot like so. And then my leader material. And I want to make sure I cut this leader material nice and tight right next to that braided knot. So there's not going to be any pieces sticking out. They're going to catch the guides on my rod. So I'm going to get right down in there like that and give it a good close snip. And you're left with something that looks like that. You don't have to worry about leaving a big tag end on that leader line. So because that braided main line is pinching that leader material together, you don't have to worry about cutting that long or, leaving a big tag end on there. You want to cut it nice and tight. That way it comes through the rod guides nice and smooth. So that's it. Those are my 2 favorite connection knots. Comment below. Let me know what knot you use to connect your braided main lines to your leaders. I would love to hear it. Again, I honestly think the FG knot is the best, but I don't have the most practice with it and I'm not consistent with it. The good old Alberto knot, I am quick at tying. Does it come through the guides the best? No, I think the FG knot is better there, but I'm consistent with this and it is a very strong knot. So always make sure that your connection knots do not go down into the actual spool of the reel. You want them to keep up above into the actual rod guides. So thank you for all the suggestions on this one. I had multiple suggestions, people asking me, what do I use? Well, there you go. So I want to thank all of you for the input. I love hearing from all of you fishing friends. And well, till next time.
And pretty hot, I'm as happy as I can be. Whoa.